Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12:20 and it's been another big week in British politics, where we saw Tory MPs trying to rebel over the Rwanda bill.
Trying to,
yes. The latest YouGov poll on voting intention shows Reform UK would get 12% of the vote. That is the highest vote share the party has ever recorded.
Yes, so GBNews political editor Christopher Hope sits down with the leader of Reform UK, that's Richard Tice, of course, to ask what exactly does the party stand for?
I want to ask you about what Reform stands for. Do you worry you're just a protest party? Back in 2015, the last comparable election...
I'm going to stop you there.
Well, let me finish the question. 3.88 million people voted for UKIP. They got one MP. The problem is you don't know where the voters live. You're big on social media, you're big in the polls. It's a wasted vote because you're going to basically hand Labour a majority government.
This is a medium-term project. Rome's not built in a day, right? We've gone from naught a couple of years ago to 12% now, according to YouGov. We're heading north, the Tories are heading south. And look, we all know that first past the post is difficult, but people have had enough. They're sick and tired of the two main parties. They're two sides of the same socialist coin. Nothing's going to change. We need wholesale reform of the way this country is run. And people are saying, thank God there's a new party that's come forward, tells it as it is, and has got a plan on the critical issues. Everybody knows the cost of living is a critical issue. We're the only party that can help deal with that by lifting the starting point at which you pay income tax to £20,000 from £12,500. That's an extra net £30 a week in everybody's pay packet.
OK, taking that for example, who's going to pay for that? That's a huge tax cut.
Yeah, it's a huge...
Is that a debt issue? Are you going to borrow more?
So, everybody knows there's a vast amount of wasteful government spending. Wherever you look, in councils, in quangos, in commissions, in government spending. We all look at our household budgets and we say, I've got to save £5 in 100, but still pay the bills, put food on the table. Likewise, small businesses, you've got to save £5 in 100, but still produce the goods. You've got to cut out all the waste.
This is fantasy land. I mean, there's no way you can go 5% off spending.
Chris, I've run a big multinational business very successfully. I know what I'm talking about. You say to all the people, all the spending managers, you've got to cut out the waste. You've got to save £5 in 100. If not, you're fined.
It just doesn't happen. You hear all the time
That's
from
because
Tory
they're not
MPs.
business people and they've all failed. The orthodoxy of the civil service and the Treasury has failed.
Have you ever worked in government? What's your experience of government?
I've worked in business very successfully. I've built thousands of homes.
Not the same, and you won't get this through. And you're going
nonsense, Chris. You see that
it's a false prospectus.
No, it's not. It's the only prospectus that's going to save Britain, because the existing prospectus from the two main parties has failed Britain, and we're going to run out of money unless something changes. And you've got to be tough with people, and you've got to be tough with the civil servants who arrogantly think you can just print money or nothing changes. I'm telling you that if we were in charge, we would drive this through. Hear me out, because you've asked me the question how you pay for it. £5 in 100 is about £60 billion. You've got to stop all the subsidies for the absurd renewable industry. That's another £10 billion, right?
That's 70 billion.
Right, that's 70 billion. Right, if you get 1 million people off out-of-work benefits back into work because of our Make Work Pay plan, that's give or take another 10 billion, right? We're up to 80 billion quid. Hear me out, right? The cost of that increase in the income tax threshold is about 40 billion quid, plus or minus a little bit. So we've got plenty there. There's another 30 billion, right, that the Bank of England is unnecessarily paying interest on all the quantitative easing money that it printed, that they shouldn't be paying that interest to the rich city institutions. The European Central Bank's not doing it, the Bank of Japan's not doing it. We're up well over 100 billion. This is serious money that's being wasted by this incompetent regime, the Treasury. They think they know the answers. They clearly don't. We're not growing. We're going south.
It's very easy for you, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. I mean, it's not going to work. The government has tried to get more people off benefits. It doesn't work.
They haven't tried, and they haven't tried to cut spending. Look at the huge increase in wasteful government spending. Right, public sector spending now, Chris, is almost £1 in 2 of the economy. 20 years ago, it was £1 in 3, and yet everybody knows.
Okay.
Right, no, hear me out. Everybody knows public sector outcomes are worse and worse and worse. All that means is the money's being wasted.
Stuff which is obviously populist, and the government would like to do if they
it's
could.
popular because that's why we're going up in the polls.
Let me finish, Richard Tice. You say you want 1 in, 1 out on net migration. How on earth does that work? You know jolly well you can't be as simple as that in terms of numbers. You can't just say, right, 1 in, 1 out. If someone leaves, that person can't arrive at Dover.
You absolutely can say our policy on immigration...
It's simplistic nonsense and it won't work.
you've asked me a question, give me the courtesy of answering it. Right, we will freeze non-essential immigration. One in, one out. You can quite absolutely easily do that over an electoral cycle. About on average, 450,000 people leave the country every year. So you can welcome smart immigration of a similar number every year, right, where you've got genuine skill shortages. Let's just remind people, net immigration in the 1980s and 1990s in this country, net was less than 50,000 a year. It's currently running at 750,000 a year. Now, back then, we didn't have huge waiting lists. We were using UK citizens trained up in healthcare and social care to fill our health jobs.
So it's an average over 5 years, is your point?
You do it as an average over 5 years. And here's the point. You've got to be prepared to try new things. That's what we do in the world of business. And here's the thing. I believe that running the country is a bigger version of running a big business.
It never is. It just never
I'm
is.
sorry, I don't accept that. And it really angers me. I'll tell you why. Because we're not growing, Chris. We're running out of money. So something's gone badly wrong. So why don't we try something different?
Stop the boats, big issue this week, illegal migration. What is your plan for illegal migration? How would you stop the boats?
We've got a 6-point plan, but the two key components is we've got to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. I'd like a referendum on that. We'd win it hands down. The country is sick and tired of foreign judges overseas telling us, a sovereign independent nation.
They're judges in a court in Strasbourg, which we sign up to. That doesn't make it a foreign court or a foreign judge.
It is a foreign court because it's not in the United Kingdom. That is literally the definition of foreign, Chris. And they are judges from overseas. That makes them foreign, right? And we're a sovereign independent nation.
Then, pulling out the ECHR?
That's the first point. The second point is you've got to do what you know works. It worked in Australia. We need in the English Channel. We need to safely pick people up out of the dinghies into our border force cutters. Instead of bringing them to Dover, you take them to Dunkirk and Calais, which we're entitled to do.
You can't do a return agreement with France.
You're asking questions with a completely false premise.
Okay.
Hear the answer. We're entitled to do that under 2 international legal treaties that I have read. I know exactly the clauses, and no one has disputed it. What you need is political courage and leadership that Tony Abbott showed in Australia in 2013. He said he would stop the boats. He did it. He got some flack from the lefty lawyers and the international institutions, but here we are 10 years later. Both main parties in Australia carry out the same policy, and the boats stopped.
Which treaties?
Right, it's the 1974 SOLAS, Safety of Life at Sea Treaty, and the second one is the 1982 UN Convention on the Law at Sea. Under those treaties, with proper, courageous leadership, we can safely pick up and take back to France.
You're a seductive offer to people annoyed about the Tory party, looking at how they can't...
Annoyed about how the country has been ruined.
OK, fair enough. The country's been ruined, and so Labour and Tory supporters.
Starmageddon is what faces the country in 2024, and it's a serious risk.
Where are you going on the polls? You're up to 13% short?
Look, we're at 12% now on a YouGov poll. We're heading north.
Internally, what have you been told?
I think, given what we're hearing internally, I think within a few weeks, we're very likely to hit 13%. We're heading north, and success breeds success.
And Tory MPs are seeing this. Have you got a unit set up to attract them to join the Reform Party?
Look, they know my number.
Yes or no? Is there a unit set up?
Well, actually, we need a unit because the truth is we're getting loads of applications from existing Conservative councillors.
How many?
Quite a lot, actually. Obviously, we have to go through a vetting process and check them, and there's tactics involved here. But there are many people in the Tory party who realise that the game is up. They're toxic. The writing is on the wall, and people are saying, actually, you stand for the philosophy of conservatism, and that's what they're signing up to.
And just finally, critics of you personally would say you're a placeholder for Nigel Farage. These numbers supporting the party might be because he's busy talking about politics more. Are you a placeholder, or are you the leader to take the party into the next election?
Well, so far, in the last 3 years, when people laughed at me when we set up Reform UK, I can't remember if you did, but lots of others did, including Tory MPs, they said, oh, you're being ridiculous. 3 years later, I tell you, no Tory MPs are laughing at us now. I've led the party, driven it to that growth, but it's a big job. The more successful we are, the more help we need, and I've absolutely said, the more help that Nigel can give, the better. And it will be a huge, huge opportunity.
Will you stand in Clacton?
Well, Nigel, you'll have to ask him.
Some polling saying
it's his decision. The polling says that he could well win. It's a huge decision. Look, I'm quite sure Nigel, he'd very much like to be in Parliament, but we know first past the post is difficult. Yeah. And these are big decisions for Nigel.
Richard Tice, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Richard Tice, the leader of the Reform Party, with his idea of running the country like a business. We'll see if voters like it.